Putin Bad News Russia has begun shelling Kharkiv and has launched another drone attack on Putin's forces in Crimea. 2 Ukrainians were killed by Russian shelling, and Moscow blamed Kyiv for launching another drone attack on Russian forces in Crimea. On Saturday morning, the Russian Defense Ministry announced via the Telegram messaging app that it had destroyed the 20 Ukrainian drones that had been launched toward the Russian-annexed Crimean Peninsula. Meanwhile, Oleh Syniehubov, governor of Kharkiv, reported on Telegram that an elderly woman had been murdered in a settlement in an eastern Ukrainian region. The village of Kupiansk-Vuzlovy in the Kupiansk district was attacked at 5:10 this morning. There was vandalism at a home. One woman, aged 73, has passed away. Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko announced on Telegram that Russian troops had used a guided aerial bomb in an attack on the town of Kharkiv in the Zaporizhia region, killing 1 police officer and wounding 12, 4 of whom were also police officers. After a Ukrainian military spokesperson threatened daily attacks on Russia last Friday, this development is not surprising. To add insult to injury, the Russian air defense system is ineffective, outdated, and cannot adequately respond to modern challenges, as Andriy Yusov of the Kyiv Post put it. Ukraine reports 2 deaths from Russian shelling in Kharkiv and Zaporizhia. Expect daily attacks, Kyiv warns Putin and Moscow. Olena Zelenska, First Lady of Ukraine, talks to Bell True of Independent TV. Reports of torture in Ukraine go way beyond rogue Russian troops, the United Nations says. Ukraine claims that 2 people were killed in Russian shelling of Kharkiv and Zaporizhia. Russian shelling early Saturday morning on a settlement in the Kharkiv region in eastern Ukraine and Zaporizhia in the south killed an elderly woman and a police officer, Ukrainian officials said. The enemy opened fire on the Kupiansk-Vuzlovy village in the Kupiansk district at approximately 5:10 this morning. There was vandalism at a home. Oleh Syniehubov, governor of Kharkiv, announced the woman's death on the messaging app Telegram. 1 police officer was killed and 12 others, including 4 other police officers, were injured in an attack in the town of Kharkiv in the Zaporizhia region, according to Telegram posts from Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko. He claimed Russian forces had used a precision-guided bomb. Reuters was unable to confirm the specifics of the Ukrainian reports on its own. Ukrainian forces have reported an increase in Russian attacks in the east of the Kharkiv region and throughout the Zaporizhia region, both of which are adjacent to the front line. Civilians living in Kupiansk district's closest settlements to the front line were ordered evacuated earlier this month by Kharkiv regional authorities. Russian aggression against a civilian infrastructure object in Zaporizhia was reported by Ukrainian authorities on Thursday night. Russia claims it did not intentionally target civilians during its 18-month invasion of Ukraine, which has killed thousands, displaced millions, and leveled entire cities. The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture told The Independent that allegations of civilians being kidnapped from their homes and abused in makeshift detention centers go way beyond the actions of rogue Russian soldiers. Dr. Alice Jill Edwards has written to Russian authorities, detailing the horrific and widespread human rights abuses committed by Moscow's troops in Ukraine since Vladimir Putin's invasion, including electrocutions, mock executions, and threats of genital mutilation. As a signatory to the UN Convention Against Torture and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Russia is obligated to investigate the serious allegations of war crimes contained in the 22-page letter. Russia's Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu inspected outposts of the Northern Fleet in the Arctic on Saturday, the ministry said, as a flotilla of warships was dispatched to the Arctic Ocean to carry out missions. Military infrastructure and readiness for actions to protect and defend critical facilities were among the things Shoigu checked out, the ministry said in a Telegram post. The Ministry of Defense announced that they had dispatched a fleet to the Arctic, comprised of the destroyer Vice Admiral Kulikov, the landing ship Alexander Otrakovsky, and the rescue tug Altai. When exactly Shoigu stopped by the fleet is unclear. The fleet announced on Friday that it had begun military training with the goal of developing strategies to protect Russian territory in the northern sea route. Air defense, air reconnaissance, and cover for troops and forces operating in the Arctic zone were all performed by MiG-31 fighter interceptors as part of combat training, the ministry said. My colleague Joe Summerlot explains that there are two obstacles to collecting reliable information on the number of military deaths that have occurred since Russia's invasion of Ukraine began on 24 February 2022. The intensity of the fighting on the ground, and the propensity of both sides to play their cards close to the vest in order to avoid undermining morale at a time when the war is entering a crucial new stage. Especially for the Kremlin, admitting high fatality rates among its troops would be a confession that Vladimir Putin's spurious war to denazify Russia's neighbor state is not going according to plan and, in fact, represents a monumental miscalculation on the part of its leader, who is already under pressure at home over the attempted uprising by Wagner Group mercenaries. What are the best guesses, though, and where does the official count stand? Report.